everyone, we're going to get started. My name is Pavlos. I'm one of the academic managers in CSS. I'm in third year, so I've been through this course. And I'm also on co-op as well. So I guess the other members can introduce themselves too.
I'm Tasmia. I'm also in third year, and I go by Philip on the Discord. So I know a lot of people asked me questions in the past week. And I'm sorry if I couldn't get back to you fast because I had a lot of midterm exams. But I'll try to get back to you as quick as possible if you have any questions.
My name is Jasper. I'm also in third year, so I don't know. My name is Rafe. I'm also in third year and the third year rep in CSS.
My name's Jeremy. I'm in fourth year, and I'm also an academic manager in CSS. So, I guess we'll get started.
Yeah, so we'll just go through an overview of what we're going to do here. So here's our agenda for today. So we sent out a Google form, which a lot of you filled out, so thank you for that. And so that form helped us base what we are focusing on today. So we saw that we want to do some general proof flow. So it's going to be like CalcCheck 101 for those that want a refresher on that. Then we're going to go into actual topics. So we're going to start with propositional logic, and then we're going to be doing while loops, and then monotonicity, and then induction, and then quantifying reasoning. And then at the end, we're going to have some general tips for the midterm and some other resources you can use. So I just want to put out some disclaimers. So we are not TAs, and we are not affiliated with Dr. Cal. So we are not officially part of TLC3 course. So we don't know what's going to be on the midterm, but we have experiences with this course, and that's the best we can do with our experiences. Yeah, if you're wondering if we know what's on the midterm, we don't know what's on the midterm. Okay, so we're going to get into some general proof flow. How many people here are pretty comfortable with just using CalcCheck? Just put your hand up. That's pretty good. Thanks. Okay, so this part will be pretty fast because we want to get into the bigger topics that you guys sent in the form. So we're going to skim through this. If you have more questions about this, ask us at the end, but we're going to assume that a lot of you are comfortable with this. If we want to prove P equals R, just go step by step. So we use our first theorem to set P to Q, and then we set Q to R. Yeah, we're going to skip a lot of this. Yeah, we'll just skip this. Yeah, we're just going to skip right into the good stuff. There is something called cyclic chaining. So this is if you go back to the start, that's a cycle. Yeah, we're just going to skip through these.
So keep in mind, a lot of these slides were made for previous years, sometimes earlier in the semester, so we're going to skip through a lot of this start because we will run out of time probably. But
yeah. If you have questions about this, ask us at the end. We just want to make sure we get through the most important things.
Oh, and also, if anyone has any questions, but we are enough people to go around, I might go around and make sure that if people have any questions while we're doing examples, why the syntax is like that, why we're using a certain theorem, just ask raise your hand and just tell us to come over or something, or you can ask in front of the class if it's something on the board. And these slides are available on Discord if you ever want to go back through them.
Now we're going to get into propositional logic. So
for propositional logic, I figured the best way to go about it was basically just take you guys through 3 examples, which we thought were good examples and give you a general idea on how to tackle these sorts of problems. So this is the first one we're going to do. If you want the link to the notebook, just click on it in the slide. Okay, so the general idea for conjunction and disjunction propositional logic proofs are usually your unfold-fold method. So what that means is somewhere at the beginning, I'm going to use golden rule to unfold and expand these terms. I'll do a bunch of simplifying and work in the middle, and then at the end, I'll fold back into, the form of expression I want using golden rule again. So I'll walk you through this proof. There might be other ways you can do it which are cleaner. I'll just explain my thinking as I go. And feel free to stop me anytime if you have any questions. At the end, if there's other exercises you need help with, you can call me over and I'll do my best to help. Okay, so starting with this one, we always want to structure our proofs with putting your initial expression and then your final expression separated by a question mark. More on that later when we talk about getting part marks. Okay, so let's get started. We'll start by using golden rule to expand this term out. Okay, so we're going to use golden rule on the P and Q term, and that will give us this. Oh. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Alright, let's continue. We'll use golden rule again. This time, we're going to consider this the expression in the brackets as one term, and the R as one term. So that will give us this. Okay, and now, what my goal here is I want to basically expand out these terms as much as I can. So I'm going to distribute out this R into the bracketed term. Okay, alright. Next thing I'm going to do, just for some clarity, is a little bit of rearranging. So what I'm going to do is basically bring all the terms with a single expression, like one letter, over to the left side using symmetry of equals. And I also might just rearrange the order of some of these disjunctions just to make something clear later on. Control. The next thing I do now is where I actually bring over the R using symmetry of equals. So all I do here is I basically move that single R term to closer over here. Okay. The next thing is you'll notice that in each of these terms, when I was going through this, I noticed there's an OR P in every single one of these except for this Q or R. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use distributivity of disjunction over equals to bring that out. Okay, so now what I can see here is that I would be able to apply golden rule on this term and turn it into a Q and R, but there's still some terms left over. So what I'm seeing here is that I'm basically going to have to do a double golden rule. So let's do it once first. So the first time I'm doing it, I'm going to make my P equal to this whole term, the bracketed term, and my Q will just be equal to P. Okay, and now all we need is a symmetry to move the P over to the other side of the conjunction because there's no implicit symmetry on this notebook, along with a golden rule just to turn this into Q and R. So we'll do the golden rule first. Okay, and now, like I said, we can just do a symmetry and get to our final result. Okay, so that's how to prove this question. Sorry that took way longer than it should have. The other ones aren't that long. The next question we're going to do is in the same notebook. It's cell 23, which is the first of the De Morgan laws, the first variation. So, again, we'll just set up our proof how we normally do. Okay, once again, we're going to use a similar idea of fold, unfold. So straight away, we'll apply golden rule on the first term. All right, and the next thing I'm going to do is bring this negation into one of these terms over here. The reason for that was basically that I know that I somehow have to get negations on both my P and Q And a handy theorem, a number theorem you should remember is 3.32, which we'll put down here, which says that if I have P or Q, that's equivalent to P or not Q, which is equivalent to P. So this is a really handy theorem for some of your propositional logic questions. Oftentimes when I get stuck on just tackling it head on with golden rule and like other basic rules, I turn to this one, and a lot of the times it can help out. So okay, let's bring that negation into the terms. Sorry, I'm just gonna rewrite this. Okay, I'm going to bring the negation onto the Q at the end. Okay, the next step here will be to apply the 3.32 theorem. But the way you can look at it is, so anytime you have an equivalence for any theorem, you can, because of symmetry of equivalence, you can essentially swap. So here, I could swap the order of my P and my P or not Q. So when I'm using this theorem, what I'm basically thinking of is moving this term over. So I have P, I'll have P or Q is equivalent to P will be equivalent to this. Now that sounds a bit confusing, but I'll write it out and just bear with me for a minute, it'll make sense.
Does anyone have any questions or questions?
Okay. So we have this now. So like I said, I basically interpreted this as if I had my P on the left side of this equivalence as well instead. So it would be like this instead. And I basically took this side, and through that I got the P or not Q over here. Okay, the next thing is basically apply this rule once again with 3.32. However, if you're looking at this shape here, you can think of it as my P over here is my not Q over here, and my Q is my P. And by doing that, we will arrive at what we were trying to prove. Does that make sense, or does anyone need any clarifications? This step, right? Okay, so the reason I brought the negation in was because I wanted to be able to apply 3.32. Okay, so when you have, in 3.32, when you have an equivalence, right? We know equivalence is symmetric, right? So if I have x equals y, that's the same thing as just saying y equals x, right? So I basically, you can think of it as I rearrange this over here to that. Does that make sense so far? Okay. And then another thing with equivalence theorems is these brackets can be applied in whatever manner you want. So I could put the brackets here and here as well. So, like that. So with equivalence theorems, through symmetry and associativity, you can basically use them in many different ways. So then this is over here is exactly what I did. So P or Q equivalent to P is equivalent to P or not Q. So I turned this whole term into P or not Q. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. Alright, last question for propositional logic. Okay, so the thing I wanted to emphasize with this question is in any notebook you're working on, once you've proved some theorem, you're free to use that theorem in all the following exercises. So just keep that in mind when you're working. Okay, we'll do the same thing. You can start from either side, but I'm gonna go from proving the conclusion to the beginning. Okay, so same thing as usual. We'll start with the golden rule and expand this out a little bit. Okay, from here, the next thing I thought of doing was getting rid of the two negations here because at the end, I just need a negation on the whole term, so these are a bit redundant. So we can do that with cancellation of negation. So what that theorem basically means is if I have something like not P is equal to not Q, I can remove the negations from both sides. Okay, so that gives us this. The next thing I notice is that we are close to this form. However, we have a negation on each term, and at the end I only want one. So what I do next is basically use the previous theorem, which we just proved, your De Morgan law, in order to take this negation off both terms. So doing that, it means we also have to switch the disjunction to a conjunction. Okay, so now I can see I'm really close to being able to apply a golden rule to be able to turn this into a P or Q, but the issue is I have this negation on the outside, and at the end I also need to bring it back. We can use a handy theorem here called definition of negation from equivalence. I'll just abbreviate it. All this basically says is if I have something like a not P, that is the same thing as saying P is equal to false. We good so far? Okay. Alright, so I'm going to do that here. What that will cause is a false to appear over here. So I'll have P, not P and Q is equal to P and Q is equal to false. So that'll look like this. Alright, now I can just apply my golden rule, turn this all into a P or Q. like that. And now I can just apply the same rule once again, which is going to say that P or Q being equivalent to false is the same thing as not P or Q. And there we go. Is there any questions about this solution? If you guys do have any other propositional logic questions or exercises you couldn't get, feel free to call me over and I'll do my best to help. We'll now move on to the next topic.
Alright, before we go into the next question, we have another guest. This man is infamous for his expertise in CalcCheck. This is a very awesome person. His name's Jacob. So, Jacob, can you introduce yourself, please?
How much am I supposed to say? They call me the CalcCheck God because I'm a god at CalcCheck. So if you have any problems, just let me know. I don't even think I'm talking into the mic really right now. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to say. I think I'm going to talk about replacement later. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Awesome. Alright, so now we're going to go into while loops. So, right, and then first we're going to go through commands. So, here's task one.
Okay, so we have 3 commands that we learned last year, which are assignment. Wait, can you guys hear me? Is this better? Okay, awesome. We have assignment, we have skip, we have the if conditional. I don't know if you guys have done the if parts yet. Yeah, and then you have while loops, which you've done already. Okay, so this is how a normal assignment command thingy looks like. This is pretty straightforward. You go from precondition to postcondition, and you have your assignment. You always want to work like bottom up from postcondition to precondition. So, yeah, there's that. That's another question. And then you have your chained assignment commands, which, yeah, this is kind of what they look like. I'm sure you're all like familiar with it.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions how you read something like this? How we can go over it? Does anyone have any questions for this one?
Yeah.
You can technically do it in either way. I've done both directions before.
Yes, this is going from top down, you're right. But I think he also encourages us to always do like bottom up.
You can go back to the one before, so like how would you read it?
This is also top down, I think.
Yeah, so I guess you guys are starting with the first condition and going down. So just like the inverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Normally when I do this, I would have the post condition at the bottom still, but I would just start at the bottom and work my way up.
Yeah.
That's nicer. But it doesn't really. It's up to you what style you want to do it in.
Okay. And so assignment with substitution, basically, you kind of don't have to do this extra step here. It's kind of like a cheat code. You can do assignment with substitution instead of assignment and substitution separately. Any questions? Okay. I want to go to the... Okay, so that's a very important inference to remember. And it basically says that if B holds and the invariant holds before executing this, then after executing this, the invariant still holds. And yeah.
Does everyone know what like the symbol means here? That little processing knows. So that's the same. Sorry for the virtual people, but that's the same thing. So we'll try to explain it. But you have your premise P, that symbol there, that's that line. You might see this one. You have your P and then you have your conclusion C. So that's just another way to write that.
Okay. Okay, we have the structure already, which is great. Okay, so a while loop has 3 parts. First, you go from precondition to your invariant, and then inside the loop, you go from the negated loop condition, the loop condition and invariant to just your invariant, and then the third part is your negated loop condition and invariant to your post condition. So what we can do here is we can okay, this goes from this to this. This looks like distributivity of dot over plus, I think. Control Enter. Oh, parse error. Awesome.
So,
okay.
There's nothing about.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, Tasman, while you're going through this question, sort of explain your thought process, what you might want to do during the midterm.
Okay. So, we know that for these questions, you always want to work bottom up from the assignments. So, you have your assignments here and here. So, these are the assignments that make you go from the precondition, which is true, to your invariant. So that part is here. You go from your precondition to your invariant. And then you just want to do the substitutions and assignments. And inside the loop, you do these substitutions, which is right here. And then be very, I don't think you will be asked to do the structure from scratch. It would be very evil, but
I think you confirmed they won't have to do the structure.
Okay.
They said the structure already set up.
Awesome.
Yeah, on the second midterm
Okay.
it's fair game, but for now at least.
Yeah. So you kind of want to work bottom up for this, basically. Starting with your assignments and your substitutions. Okay, awesome. Let's go over. We have a parse error. Control Enter.
You want to work bottom up just to do the assignments, and then once you finish doing all the assignments and substitutions, then you kind of can work from either direction to get from what you have to what you need to have at the top.
I am missing something here.
Is there no way to make the window wider? Why is it so small?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
There's a key find for it. I just don't know what it is.
Alt R.
Or you can also, you can just go down and drag it over as well.
Okay,
Control,
thank you.
Shift.
Shift? Which one's shift? This?
Mac,
Guys,
Mac user uses Windows.
Okay, my bad.
Control Alt Shift.
And then the arrow, I think with the right arrow, you can widen it, yeah.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
If you want to tag me in, you can, by the way.
Hmm?
If you want to tag me in to do it, you can.
No, it's okay, I can do it.
Yeah.
Are you implying that I can do it?
No, I'm just saying if you don't want to do it.
No, I can do it. Where was I? Oh, it just went away. Did it reload my entire notebook? Fun. Do you have a question?
Hey, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, hi guys. My name is Sana. I'm your Vice President of Student Support. And I just wanted to come and say hi. I help these kids organize your help sessions. So I hope things have been going well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, that worked.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so do you guys understand how we went from this to this? Is that clear? I know I didn't explain much, but do you guys get that? Kind of? No? Okay, awesome, we get it. Okay, I don't have to explain that. Okay, moving on. Here, we have a 2. We don't have a 2 here. We have this stuff. Okay, what we can do here, this is pretty straightforward. You have an equivalence on this. Sorry. Okay, sorry. You have an equivalence here, and you have a +2 on both sides. So you could easily use cancellation of plus. Why is it not working? Where's your enter key? Control, Shift, Enter.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, that worked. So we have successfully done the inner part of the loop, and we have not, sorry. We have one substitution left. My bad. Okay, so here it says that you have to replace instances of S with S plus D everywhere. So you have...
You've done that at the book. It's part of the setup. It's been done. The substitution's been done at the book, right?
No.
But
this hasn't been done.
You're in the loop.
What?
You're in the loop.
Oh, okay, my bad. Was I not in the loop? I was always in the loop.
The assignment substitutions have been done. Like,
No,
I don't know.
they're
Okay,
not.
so I actually don't know what he does with the structure here, where he makes a Z out of nowhere. But that Z is not part of the commands.
Oh.
This has been made for fun, but you see he's done the S equals S plus D substitution.
Yeah.
I think this is what confuses people with this question. Is this one of ours? Or this wasn't one of their exercises, right?
This was one of theirs.
Oh, it was one of theirs. Okay.
Yeah.
I asked another third year if there were any... Sorry, another second year if there were any... what's the word? While loop exercises, and I was told no. So I think I was just lied to.
I think they just got this, like, recently. Okay. So with weakening, you can go, if you have a conjunction, you can essentially, like, remove one part when you're going from top to bottom, if that makes sense. So you have it not I equals N here. Right? And I don't think we need that later on. Our expression here just has D. So we could get rid of that, and then we can just have this part.
For this type of question, I probably wouldn't be working top-down at this point, because I don't know about you guys, I wouldn't know what I'm actually working towards, really. I guess you can kind of tell that the I equals N is gone, but I would probably be starting from what we have at the bottom right now, with the expression with the Z, and trying to simplify that first. I usually leave my, big line with the loop invariant, or, the negated loop condition at the top, until I know it's not necessary anymore.
Okay. So, we have the Z thing here, so we can just do, our normal substitution. And then get rid of that long... Control Z? How does...
Should be Control Z. What did you do?
That's what it looks like, right? S becomes S plus D?
Yeah, he's already done the substitution as part of the structure.
Okay. So I will... just copy. Why is it so hard to work on this? Oh my god. What? Okay. So... okay, we have that. Awesome. And then we have to get from this to this. Oh, except, we need that. Okay. That should... did that work? I'm just gonna do this. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, that looks good. Okay, now we have this part, and then we have S plus D equals I dot I or whatever. So if you notice, you have two different, not different, but you have two D equal something expressions right here. So a good thing to use here would be abbreviated replacement. Have you guys heard of that before? So instead of doing substitution replacement and substitution, you could just straight away do abbreviated replacement. And that would like take away 3 lines.
You have an example of it later?
Yeah. We have it here right now, actually. You could think that would just be abbreviated replacement, substitution. Oh, okay. That didn't work. I'm missing something. What am I missing?
The cancellation of
yes. Right. Oh, why does this keep doing this? Okay. So we have okay. So we can replace this with this thing here. Because that's how replacement works. And also remove the brackets, I hope. And then we can, oh my god. Okay, you have 2 things here that look the same and are on opposite sides of an equivalence. So you can use cancellation of plus to get rid of that. This thing and this thing. This whole thing, basically. It's the same thing. So you can do cancellation of plus and get rid of that. Awesome. That worked. This is our... Okay, so we're officially done with the stuff inside the loop. We're done with the loop condition. We proved that it goes from loop condition invariant to just invariant. Okay, so let's do the precondition to invariant now. Okay, so we have this assignment done. So here S becomes 0, so you replace instances of S with 0 everywhere. So we just have one S here. Control Enter. Control Shift Enter. That's very easy. Okay.
I just started reloading the page when that happens.
Okay. So now we replace instances of I with 0 everywhere. Control C. Control V. Does anyone have any questions till this point? No? Am I good to go on? Okay. So you replace instances of I with 0 everywhere. And it should be pretty simple from here on. Okay, that worked. So we need to prove that this is true. So right away I can see that I have this here. So I could use a 0 of 0 or identity. We're going to try both and see which one works. Yes. To get rid of one of them. And then that would be this. And then you have 0 plus 0 here, which is, you can make that one by doing it. I mean, you can get rid of one of the zeros by doing identity of plus. You cannot make that one. That was very bad phrasing. Okay. And then you could do another one.
You don't need to get rid of another one.
Really?
Yeah, you can just get rid of zero
Okay.
as well.
Awesome. Control Alt Enter. That did not work. Why does that not work? Okay, awesome. We're almost done. And then you have... This is just like plain old reflexivity of equivalence and idempotency of and. Enter. Awesome, that worked. Okay. Do we have any questions of why that works? Or anything you want me to elaborate on?
Does everyone understand like what we're doing in terms of like that first inference? Like,
What are you talking about?
like just go back to the slides. Yeah. Like, is anyone confused on like how we get that whole answer from this? Like what B is, what Q is, what C is? Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
For actually solving the while loop? Can you go back to the question, actually? Can I take this one?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, there's a different way to handle each of these. I think in order of how easy they are, I think typically proving the precondition, proving that you can get the invariant from the precondition is the easiest one. And I would just start from the invariant at the bottom here, and just apply the substitutions. So just apply the assignments. That much is simple enough. And then from here to here, it ends up being not that difficult, I find most of the time. At this point, it's a pretty standard CalcCheck question, right? So I think that one's the easiest one. Does that make sense? Okay, can you go to I can scroll down. Once you are inside the while loop, there'll be this while subproof you have to do. What was the command to shift it over? Guys, one more. I need to see the whole thing. Perfect. Thank you. Can you do it one more time? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Then you have to prove that from the negated loop condition. Sorry, no, just you have to prove from the loop condition and the invariant, doing the assignments that you'll get to the invariant. I would again start from the bottom. Once again, do the assignments, much like with the precondition. And then once you finish doing the assignments, this one just somehow tends to be the most difficult one I find. Just the most difficult CalcCheck question to prove, but it's still a pretty standard CalcCheck question once you've done the assignments. And you're typically going to have this loop condition, I find, typically gets discarded with weakening most of the time. Usually this thing here, you're going to see it when we get down below as well. See how it's the same thing down here, but it's negated? Usually this is going to be needed for proving the post condition. But it's not needed inside the while with subproof. That information is more important later down the line in the course when you're going to need to actually figure out what area you want to use. But for now, most of the time, just when you see this little thing at the beginning and with it, you're probably weakening that out and just trying to get from here to here after the substitutions. So yeah, for the first two though, for the precondition and just being inside the while loop, I would start from the bottom, do the assignments, and just try to get to this. Once you've done the assignments, pretty standard CalcCheck stuff. The very last thing, I guess I was pointing at the TV a lot, but no one online can see what I'm talking about. Well, that's what it is. True. Okay. Finally, for getting to the post condition from the negated loop condition, you are almost always going to need this property this time. This one typically is helpful because a lot of the time it's like while the variable is not equal to something or while it's less than equal to, especially when it's a not equal to, that becomes an equal to when you negate it. And you can now do some replacement substitution stuff with this. Now that you have I is equal to n, you can use replacement to replace the i's with n's, which is clearly going to be important for getting down to here. So this is the only part of the while loop where I would start from the top and try to simplify it as best you can and work towards the bottom. And you have implications going in that direction, which make things even easier. Okay.
Yeah, if you are on the midterm and you forget what that inference is. It should be in your notebook if you get you probably get all the theorems.
They probably won't need the inference rule for now, right? I can't imagine they would need it on this midterm.
Yeah.
Unless it's related to like a quiz question.
Yeah, it's more for next, like the midterm 2, but they have the inference rules right here.
Yeah.
So if you need to refer to it, it's in your notebook.
Yeah, believe it or not, that whole structure he's built totally just comes from this rule. On the final exam, I'd forgotten how to set up most of it, so I had to reference this rule, and it reminded me how to set everything up. I think maybe we'll save talking about the theory of that and why it's important for next time, though. I don't think it's really important for now. It's more just about knowing the procedure for actually solving these, and we can talk more about the complexities of while loops for the next midterm, I think.
Okay, so here you have a not I not equals n, so you could probably get rid of that.
Okay.
Sorry guys, I'm really bad with Windows, if you couldn't tell. Okay, so here you have this thing, right? So you could use, what's that theorem called? Definition of not equals. Okay, sorry. Definition of not equals. That's the thing, right? Oh, here. Sorry, I'm really blind. Okay, so you have not I equals n in this entire thing. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so we could use double negation to get rid of that thing there. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. How do you make it go right? No, wait, tell me.
Control Shift Alt. Control Shift Alt.
Control Shift.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, looks much better now. So we have this thing here. I equals n and d equals I plus 1 and s equals I times I. We needed to get it in the form s equals n times n, so we do know that we have to use some sort of replacement to get it from this form to this form. Right? Okay, so the way I'm seeing it is that since we already have I equals n, we could use abbreviated replacement to substitute every instance of I with n. And we could possibly use weakening to get it into this final form. So let's try that. I could use abbreviated replacement substitution, and I can just substitute the i's with the n's. That should probably work. That did work. Awesome. So what we did here is just that we replaced I with n's, but we didn't replace every single I because we can just do weakening and get rid of this. So it wouldn't make sense if we change the values of these i's, because we would essentially use weakening to get rid of it anyway. And now we can just use weakening to get rid, because we have conjunctions, to get rid of all that stuff. Control Alt Shift Enter. No, Control Alt Enter. No, that didn't work. Okay, I did something wrong. It's gonna time out. Oh, it didn't time out. Awesome. Okay, we are done with the while loop. Do you guys understand how abbreviated replacement works? Any questions? This is the entire thing, basically. Okay, I think we can move on. We're good to move on. Alright. Okay.
Right, okay. So, oftentimes you'll have a theorem. I guess I should be sticking to the computer, actually, because I keep forgetting it's online. Yeah, okay. Oftentimes you'll have a theorem like this where something will imply something. And when you have just what you need on its own, works great. The theorem works fantastic. As soon as you have... Right, I have something that matches the pattern I need for my theorem, and I have my result down here, and I want to say, with an equivalence rule, right, if this was just an equivalent symbol, I could just say, oh yeah, this equals this, and we're good, I have swapped them out, and the other term over here doesn't matter because these are equivalent. But when you have implication, it's not quite the same. When you have an implication theorem, if you have another operator on the outside, if we consider what the main operator is, this whole expression is wrapped inside of this OR operator, right? So, because mainly it's seeing something or something, you can't just directly imply from here to here, because there's another operator on the outside. So you'll see, we've got this nice little CalcCheck could not justify this step, because of this OR. So this is where you would need monotonicity of OR. When you have an implication step that you feel isn't working for this reason, try to look at what your outermost operator is. In this case, it's our OR, and then our AND operator and all this stuff is inside of that OR. So we would need to do monotonicity of OR. I think it's with transitivity, right? I actually forget what the syntax is exactly. You would do, yeah, here we go, okay. You would have to write monotonicity of OR with transitivity, which now lets you use this rule with the monotonicity. We can actually look back at what the theorems actually say. Monotonicity of OR says that if you have some theorem saying P implies Q, then... I'm trying to remember how this... Is that the same thing we just had? This is not working, I remember it. I'm so washed. I feel like this is too many things, is it not? What's my R and my S here? My P implies Q feels like this rule, which is when I'm feeding transitivity. I don't actually know what the RNS here is in this. I don't know if there's a simpler version of it. Am I crazy?
What theorem is it using?
Because they're just using monotonicity of OR. Right, if I'm feeding it transitivity, this is my... So the with keyword might get kind of confusing. Anytime you see a theorem that starts with something implies, like a bigger theorem, it's a great opportunity to use with. With, basically, whatever you put after the with gets fed in as this thing at the beginning of the implication here. So when I say I'm using this rule with transitivity, the transitivity implication, right, the implication that this implies this, that implication is being fed in right here for my P and my Q. Now, this rule is confusing me, actually, because I don't know what RS is in this situation. I don't know if there's a simpler... I think there might be a simpler variant of this theorem, because I don't remember it looking like this, to be honest. I actually don't know. Yeah, because I feel like there's no RNS. Am I losing my mind?
Is it like combining those two to do like, since it's AND? Is that combining?
I think so. Because in this case, my P is S. My R is also... Oh, wait, what? Look, it's changing both of them. Yeah, no, this is a more complicated version of monotonicity. This is actually not the version that's being used here. This would be a version that would let you swap out both sides of the equation with different theorems. This is not quite what I'm using here. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. The rule that's in the slides is a bit confusing and not really not the variant of it being used here. But in short, it is really important to note that anytime you see a theorem and you want to basically give it some info, for this first part here that implies the rest of the useful theorem, that's where you use with. That's where you use the with keyword and provide it kind of an input. And you'll see that you use a lot with assumptions as well. Okay. Now we get to the lovely multiple layers of monotonicity, which will probably be more important later on in the course. I don't know how relevant this is right now. But when you start with this massive equation... and you have a theorem, right? We have our transitivity. We want to prove, we know that this implies this. And that actually does mean that this whole equation here does imply the second one. But
are just putting transitivity won't work because we have a lot of outer operators to deal with first. So we would have to do monotonicity of implication with monotonicity of and with monotonicity of or, and finally our actual transitivity rule for this one to work. And I think that should be exactly what I said. Yeah. Monotonicity of implication lets us get work inside of the implication operator. Monotonicity of and to go inside the and operator here. Monotonicity of or to go inside the or to finally say this implies this. So I think this sort of thing looks really confusing at first, but once you realize you're just trying to figure out what the outer operator is and go one step inwards at a time, the monotonicity questions aren't that bad. Just sometimes it can be annoying, you just forget you even have to do it. Like you're looking at this going, why is transitivity not working? Because it clearly matches the same pattern and you just forget you even have to use the monotonicity. On some notebooks, you'll have just a monotonicity word enabled, where you could just write monotonicity with no quotation marks with transitivity, and it would do all of this automatically. I don't think you have that yet, though, unfortunately. Anything else I should add about? Are there any questions about monotonicity? Yeah, good. Just this specific example? So when you look at a question like this, right, we have our, from the previous slide, there's this transitivity rule, right? Saying this part implies this part. So our goal is just to say that this whole massive statement implies this, because we know that this part implies this. Does that make sense so far? Now, if you just tried to put transitivity in here, it wouldn't work. Because there's a lot of other operators in the way, and you have to kind of work inwards first. So, right, with an equivalence rule, you'd be able to swap it out, but it doesn't work the same for an implication rule. So what you do first is you look at the outermost operator. Right, this whole expression is a something implies something big in brackets. So you first need to use monotonicity of implication. Then we're now looking inside of this part, and then we have to use monotonicity of and. Because now this expression was something and something and something. Now once we've used monotonicity of and, now we're inside of here. Now we have to use monotonicity of or, and then finally we can use the with transitivity at the end. Does that make sense? Exactly. You can think of it as kind of working one step inwards until you finally got to the part you want. You can say implies this. There are also some other. There's monotonicity. There's also some other ones. Monotonicity essentially means that. I don't know if I can explain this well. It's easy for numbers. Like, I mean, the word monotonic. It's like for a function, it means it's always increasing. In this case, it just kind of talks about the direction of implication. If you have something implies something, then it's just saying that thing and something else would imply the thing it implies in something else. It just says that property holds for most logical operators. For not, though, it's negated. So there's an antitonicity of the negation symbol. And that just means it'll be the other direction. Yeah. And the ones for isotonicity deal with equivalence. I don't remember examples of those off the top of my head. And just in case anyone was wondering about the other words. Okay, so any other questions about that, or does that make sense? Okay. Is it good, guys? Okay.
Proof structures and techniques. So these are CalcCheck keywords. So like in programming languages, you might have other keywords like interface or class. These are other keywords that CalcCheck defines to help you achieve a goal. So one of the keywords is called subproof. So the subproof allows us to use other proof structures in the middle of our main proof. So they're almost always required for proofs that use the using keyword, which we will discuss later. Just follow my cursor here. So we begin our proof, and then we get to a point where we want to just break down the next step into like a subproof. So this could be like when you're writing a test and then you have like an aside. This is the same idea. So you're just breaking down the work into a subtask. So this sort of lets us reuse the sort of like beginning of a proof. So what I mean by that is, so if we define a new proof for this term here, A equals 0 implies the negation of positive A. So say we want to use assuming, we wouldn't be able to unless we like sort of restart our proof. So That's why we define the subproof. So now we can use assuming A equals 0. So sort of using subproof lets you like reset and like break that down into a separate task. So now we can assume A is true, and then we can also access that assumption to prove our proposition. Yeah, so using subproofs is really powerful when you see implies. Right, so now this is a big one. This will probably be on your midterms. So we have all seen induction in 1DM3. You're going to use all of what you learned, but you're just going to be writing it in CalcCheck. We've done induction on natural numbers. Honestly, you're probably only going to have to understand the natural numbers. There's going to be later notebooks that will go over induction on binary trees. These are like data structures. You might have to use induction perhaps in a data structures course, but we're not concerned. We're just going to be concerned on induction on the natural numbers. So those are numbers from 0 to infinity. So yeah, we have this keyword by induction on, which lets us define an induction proof. So we'll go over that. So just a refresher from 1DM3. So induction works by sort of knocking down dominoes. So what you want to do is you want to prove your base case. So when we're inducting on the natural numbers, of course, it's going to be the first number on the natural numbers, which is 0. So we want to prove our proposition on 0. And then we're going to assume that that proposition holds on n. And then we just want to use that induction hypothesis for sort of n plus 1. So that's going to be an induction case. And CalcCheck neatly defines this. So that k plus 1 or n plus 1 that you see when you do your induction step, that is sort of defined in CalcCheck as successor of n, because we know that successor is defined as like n plus 1. So that's how it sort of defines that induction step. So here we go. Yeah, so this might be a question you might have seen in 1DM3. So we're going to prove that if something's even, that's the same thing as saying it's not odd. So you might have proven that in 1DM3, but we're going to be proving it in CalcCheck. So when you start your induction proof, you're going to use the induction keyword by induction on. And then the next thing you're going to do is you need to define like what set you're inducting on. So in this case, we're inducting on the natural numbers, which is n, the set n, in this fancy LaTeX here. So we're just saying that this input will be existing in n. So now we're going to prove our base case. So on the natural numbers, the first case is 0. So now we need to just input 0 here. So we're going to prove it for n equals 0. So we have some theorems defined that will help us get to evaluating to true. So we can plug in 0, and then we have an axiom that 0 is even. And then from there, we can just use the axioms defined. Usually this base case will be fairly simple, and this is actually really good for your midterm, because since the base case is sort of simple, you can easily get a lot of part marks, because you can essentially do half the question, which will be really good. So now, we have to do our inductive step. So now we need to prove it for the successor of n, which is going to be sort of like our n plus 1. What was that? Okay, yeah, so now we're on the inductive step. So in CalcCheck, you can sort of access your induction hypothesis, which is really strong. So you can just use a single line, and you can sort of say you're assuming that proposition for all n less than or equal to k. So we sort of convert it by using even successor. But then here, this keyword is very powerful. So induction hypothesis basically is saying that, we're basically saying that this is true. So essentially you can just say whenever you see even n, you can replace it with the negation of odd. So that's exactly what we do here. So now we can replace it, because again, we're assuming that's true. So then we get to here. And then from there, we get that it's proven for k plus 1 or n plus 1. Yeah, and here's an important note. So when you're doing your induction proof, CalcCheck is usually really good at figuring out what you mean by base case and by inductive step. So you can see here, we did it explicitly. So if CalcCheck isn't understanding what you mean by base case, we've written it here, where the arrows are. So we're going to say the base case is, this is what we're going to prove as the base case. But alternatively, you could just not write it. And the CalcCheck parser will most often accept what you're saying base case is, which is really good. You can save time on the test. Here's another induction proof. I'm going to skip this one because we're sort of running out of time, but it's sort of the same idea. We're going to do the fall 2024, this is last year, exercise 4.4. Yeah, so this is a double induction. So this will probably be a question that you might see on your midterm. It's going to take too long to write it, so I'm just going to explain the idea and what you might be thinking during the test. And yeah, so let's start. So this is the thing we're trying to prove. So we're going to prove this lemma. So a really important thing here that you might get stuck on is how do you read this? So we see like all these equal signs, but like where do we like separate it? So since it's just sort of like a Boolean statement, we want to find where our equivalence operator is. So these are numeric equals, but since we're proving it like a Boolean, we want to find where our triple equals is. So that's right there. So a way you could read this is you want to say sort of this. So you want to say that the successor of C times A is equal to the successor of C times B is an equivalent statement of saying that A is equal to B. So essentially, since A equals B, we should get from that these terms are equal. So this statement, we want to evaluate as true. So that's the first step. It's just understanding what you're proving. And we'll just go through the solution here. I'm going to zoom in here. First, we want to prove our base case, so we're going to prove it for 0. Again, this will be really good for part marks. The 0 case is usually straightforward. So when you want to do your base case, you're going to have axioms or theorems that will essentially get you to concluding your base case is true. So always look at what you're being given. What you're being given will always get you to complete your base case, like just by plugging and chugging. So here we get it here. And here we've actually explicitly defined base case. I would bet that CalcCheck would automatically accept an implicit base case, so you're not writing the string here. And so now we complete our base case. Now we want to get to our inductive step. But since we sort of have like 3 terms here, this might be a good time to use double induction, because you sort of are inducting on 3 terms here. Yeah, so we just start another induction proof, and again, we solve it for the base case. But again, this base case is on our nested inductive step. Basically, we're doing the inductive step, but then plugging in 0 into there. And then we prove it here. And then we can use a double inductive step. So we're going to have like successor of successor. And then from there, we can use our inductive hypothesis to get to our conclusion. It's just a personal experience. When I did 12C3 on the midterm, when I got an induction question, I wrote it down on paper because from 1DM3 I understood how induction is. So when you write it on paper, you just need to ask yourself, how do I convert this into CalcCheck language? And from there, that was a very helpful strategy for me. It might not be for everyone, but if you're very comfortable with induction from 1DM3, just write down the problem on paper. Like, you'll get paper and pencil, and yeah, from there you can sort of say like, how do I convert this, and then do the conversion. And if you're having trouble doing the conversion, again, you can always add the question marks to get part marks. So yeah, that's one tip for the induction question.
So I will be going over proving method using. So it is gonna be used a lot in like any proving method. So like, even though you don't have to understand how it fully works, but it is good to know like how to use it. So based on my understanding, using is like something when you're proving something that's not in good format to prove, you're using like existing theorem to like convert into like better format to prove. So for this case, we are proving x plus y is greater than 2. It implies x greater than or equal to 1 or y greater. Yeah, but in this case, it's not like clear to like proved in this way. So we are using contrapositive, which is like when you have P implies Q, you can alternatively prove it by not Q implies not P. So in this case, we proving this. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this. And for the case proof, case proof is something that you use when you can break into like naturally like subsets. So like when you prove something and it's like too complicated to be solved in at once, you kind of break into like sub cases. Like in this case, we break it down to like P or not P. In this, so like the structure will be like by cases. Then you define the cases that you will be using. Then in the completeness, you gotta show them why this works. So in this case, it is simply P or not P. So it can be done in one sentence like by and the theorem, which is excluded middle. And then you have to show like for each case, like in this case, case P and why it is hold, and for case not P, why it is hold. So I will go over some examples for positivity of squares. So we start by assuming B is not equal to 0, and there will be two cases for B. It's either plus B or not plus B. And similar to the one I said before, the completeness can be done by excluded middle, as it's like plus B or not plus B. And for case plus B, assuming that like plus B is true, we have to show like true implies plus B times B. So in this way, in this case, we are proving like in backwards. So we start from plus B times B all the way down to true. After proving this part, you have to do for not plus B. And this is like the different way to write down completeness. If you need like more steps to like prove it, you can always like put your proof inside like completeness and between like case plus B. I think it's better to, so it is like one more example for case. So we assume P implies Q and also P or R, and breaking down to like two cases where P or R. So in this case, as we assume P or R, the completeness can be done by assumption. So yeah, proving for case is like pretty much the same. I will do like example. I will just go over practice question instead of. So for this question, as we have like implication before this part, we often start by assuming the first part. So assuming this A. After assuming plus A, we have to prove this is true. But as I said, it's not easy to prove it just by having assuming plus A. So we can break this down into like different cases where, before that we can like use like mutual implication, which is like P implies Q is equivalent to, P is equivalent to P implies Q and Q implies P. So to do that, we just do using application, and we do that, we can change it to like this format. Then we have two things to prove, which is like P implies Q and Q implies P. So whenever you use it, it's better to like do the like structured thing first, then prove it. So proof for must be
You can just go through the solution.
Time. So like, yeah, it's
what you're thinking, like what you might do.
Yeah, so like for the first part, it's like easy. So like you just kind of prove this. So like this is like not problem, but like the second part, it is not easy to prove this way. So we also use contrapositive to like changing to format that is easier to solve. After changing it to like not pos b implies not pos a times b, and there's two cases for b where b is equal to 0 or not equal to 0, and the completeness can be done by like definition of not equal to 0 unknown equivalent, then excluded middle, and for b equals to 0 you just kind of start from not pos b implies not pos a times b, and using the assumption b equal to 0, you kind of just sub it into b, then just prove it. And this part is kind of tricky because you kind of have to like use identity of n to like make true, then use assumption pos a to create like positivity under multiplication. So you just kind of put into format. Unlike the last part, is not easy to like explain in words. So I might post it in Discord after. Yeah.
Alright, thank you. Okay. Alright, so we'll get into our last few topics, then we're going to have midterm advice. This can be really important to listen to our midterm advice because we've done the midterms, like we have experience. So listening to upper years is a very good idea because we have like valid experiences. So, but before we get into the midterm advice, we just want to quickly go over that abbreviated replacement. So if you want to sort of just like plug in a term, you can sort of do like this triple substitution, replacement substitution, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Us just trying to plug in k equals 3. It's like sort of like an intuitive thing you want to do. You just want to plug in k equals 3, like just say substitution, k is 3, plug it in, and it should go right here where k is. It's actually sort of complicated without abbreviated replacement. So this is what abbreviated replacement is at its core, but it's sort of composed of 3 steps. But with the abbreviated replacement rule, we can convert it into 1 step. So this is the long way to do abbreviated replacement. So we see that we want to plug in k equals 3. And it's honestly not that intuitive. So you sort of just have to swap k with a dummy variable and then swap it back. And that can be sort of a time killer on the midterm. So we recommend you use abbreviated replacement. So we're going to show you that. So this is the problem I would go through, but we're running low on time if you want to get through the midterm advice. So yeah, you can try this one later and message us if you need any help. But I just want to go over where this abbreviated replacement occurs. So we can see the first 3 steps. We have the long version of abbreviated replacement. So basically, we just want to plug in k equals 1, I plus 1, but this long solution does it in 3 steps. So we replace it with a dummy variable z, and then we set z to I plus 1, and then we swap it back. Again, this will be redundant and pointless to do in the midterm, as you can just do it with this abbreviated replacement. And remember to include substitution. The theorem will not work unless you add an additional substitution that sort of like injects it into your next expression. Yeah, so when you see something like k equals something, and you want to here I want to inject it like on the next step. So we see this times, where my mouse is here, this times k. We want to just like say, because it is true that k is I plus 1, we just want to inject it here. So we just use abbreviated replacement with substitution, and we can do this in one step. This will be extremely helpful for while loops, especially on midterm 2, and whenever you see a case like this where you just want to inject like a known value, like just like a plug and chug sort of thing. So any questions about abbreviated replacement? Yeah. I can't say for sure, but I can almost, with a grain of salt, I can almost guarantee on midterm 2 it will be available if you're going to have to like do an entire while loop. But like we personally, there was no case where it wasn't when we had while loops, like times where you need to like assign something. So there's a good chance, but again, I can't say for sure. So take my advice with a grain of salt. But it would be like Dr. Cal defines these things to make the CalcCheck experience more intuitive. So I would say there's a good chance it will be there, because you can, and if it's not there, you can sort of define a lemma on the side if you like have a ton of it to do. So there's always that solution too, but I would say there's a good chance. Yeah, it'll be there. But again, the course is a bit different this year, so we can't say for sure. But yeah. Yeah, so you're going to have to have the 2 hints in one step. Again, for midterm 1, I can't say for sure, but like when you get to like exam and midterm 2, he sort of just like unleashes all of CalcCheck availabilities. Like you'll have every tool you want to use. Usually that's how it works. Again, I can't say for sure, but yeah.
Alright, so I heard that you just learned quantifiers, so I'm not sure if it'll be on your midterm, but you should at least know the basics of it. So at least quantifiers are pretty easy to understand. You have 2 in CalcCheck, just the universal and existential one. I honestly don't know. Are there any others? No. But yeah, we'll skip through it. But here's an example. So the way it's written is, for example, you'd say there exists some x, which normally you do write the type, but in this case, that type would be like integer, for example. There exists some x, and then that little bar indicates a condition to the right of it. In this case, x is between 1 and 5. And then after the dot, you have the actual, the expression that it's trying to say. So in English terms, it says there exists some x such that x is between 1 and 5. X plus x is equal to 6. And this is a simple example, so obviously, for example, this is true. It would return true. You could prove that this is true in CalcCheck because 3 exists and does satisfy the condition that it's between 1 and 5, and satisfies the actual expression that x plus x is 6. And here's another example with the universal quantifier. Just says for all x and y, and that little colon with the z just says that they're both integers. And then you have conditions that x is 1 and y is greater than 6. And the expression is that 6 is less than or equal to x plus y. Whether or not that's true, I honestly don't know right now, but you'd be able to prove it in CalcCheck. And here's an example of a few. Do we want to? Yeah. But you should know, I will just say you should probably know these, as long as you've learned them so far. I'm not completely certain. But these are the basic quantifier theorems. Okay, then it probably won't show up. But just, I don't know. Just in case, probably should. Yeah, that's... Oh, this is important though. How to instantiate something. The important part here is, you see how the arrow is going to the left? It's pointing to the existential quantifier. Because if you have an instance of that, right, you can imply... So, for example, if you know that x is y in this case, you can imply that there exists some x such that the condition's true. But you cannot do it the other way around. If something exists, you can't imply that it's just straight up a value or something. But if you have that value that satisfies it, then the implication goes that way. And you can do it either way. Like you could do this top down or bottom up. Doesn't matter. And then quantifiers.
Are we good with quantifiers? Cool.
All right. So, some midterm tips now. Right, so we have the idea of working backwards. So if forwards isn't working, sort of like a mental shift, so you have to work backwards. So instead of starting at the top, we start at the bottom. Again, this is just something in your toolkit. So if you're stuck on a question, maybe start at the bottom and you can fill a few steps and you get like maybe 2 or 3 more part marks like that. Those will all add up. So again, if you're stuck at the top, come from the bottom and perhaps you can fill in a few more steps from the bottom. Here's a big one. So if you are mentally blocked on your midterm, it's almost always better to just change questions than like getting stuck in like your way of how you want to solve it. If you set a problem aside and then do something else and then come back, your brain automatically will solve the other problem like subconsciously. So when you come back to it, you might have another idea. So just giving yourself a break from a problem, coming back, that will be extremely helpful. So if you're stuck on something, try something else. Maybe grind out some other part marks and then come back to the other question. Instead of just like sort of rigidly trying to force your way with like your way of doing it. Yeah, so the idea of the midterm is like you want to maximize the number of like part marks you're getting. This is one paradigm of doing the midterm. Yeah, so if you're when you come back and you're still stuck, try a different proof structure. If you're using by cases, maybe it's actually mutual, like assuming, or it's using a subproof. Yeah, so this is probably the biggest idea of like passing to LC3. So we're going to call this the question mark meta. Say like you can do half of a proof. Do what you know, and then you put that question mark so like it still compiles properly when you submit your test. And then you can maximize the number of part marks because Dr. Cowles is usually very generous with part marks. So yeah, always think about maximizing the amount of stuff you're writing on your notebook. This is a very important strategy to pass. So the first thing you can do is just write down the first step. So you see the first step is just this proposition here. So we're going to write it here. And then we're just going to put a question mark and be like, okay, the beginning, and then somehow we're going to get to the end. This alone, you're going to get 1 mark. It can't be a 0 because you proved you can do something. So yeah, just do that. The bare minimum, like maximizing part marks is a valid strategy in this course. I know a lot of people that have done well by just using this maximizing strategy. So like you don't have to be perfect on every cell, just maximize. That's your mental frameworks, maximize. Yeah, so we're going to just say, okay, I don't know what happens in between here, but there's something. Yeah, and then you can add comments as well. If you don't want to go back and forth, again, another thing you want to optimize is time. If you're always opening the theorem thing, closing it, trying to find it, you can just write a comment. It will not interfere with syntax parsing. So if you use this dash line, you can initiate a comment, and then this won't be included in parsing. Well, it is, but it's like negated. Like it just says it's a comment, like you're writing code. So you can always just see that what this theorem is. So like this is very powerful. You don't have to go back and forth, and all those seconds will add up, and those seconds can get you other part marks. So yeah, if you're like constantly going back and forth to a theorem, write it as a comment, and yeah, you can just not have to open the theorem book a lot of times. So that's another optimization.
Okay, so last year we had Jacob. Where's Jacob? Where is Jacob? Oh, he's right there. So I want to say thank you, Jacob, because last year he did a bunch of videos for 2LC3, and the current third years swear by it. So if you guys need more help, go check out his playlist. It's linked in the slides, which we will post. So check this out. It's pretty great. And yeah, like, I'm pretty sure we cover also like midterm 2 material.
I want to say the very first video on this playlist was like a midterm 2 review session.
Yeah.
From what I remember. So not like most of it is going to be later material. I don't think even the first video is going to be helpful yet.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from maybe the specific part where I cover while loops, because they didn't have while loops on their first midterm.
Okay. So for the people, lovely. For the people online, basically what was just said is that most of the videos in this playlist are for midterm 2 and above material. But if you click on the link, the exact link will take you to the timestamp where he covers while loops, which is relevant to your guys' midterm 1. And a special thank you to Richie, who is, if you guys don't know Richie, he's a 4th year. He's on co-op like me. And he made all these slides in fall of 2023. When he was taking 2LC3, he was tutoring other people in 2LC3. He's kind of our GOAT. He's also part of CSS, but not as an academic manager, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like, shout out to Richie. We've been using these slides for 3 years now. They're pretty great. Yeah. Thank you for attending, you guys. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, bug the academic managers if you guys are still confused. Yay!